SCOF. Welcome all the team members from Parliament supporting SCOF, and those who come from other divisions of Parliament, PBO, Legal Services, Communications, and others. You are all welcome. Welcome officials from National Treasury, DPSA, SITA, and other entities that report to National Treasury. You are all welcome, and welcome the media. We are going to get a briefing from National Treasury, DPSA, and SITA on the implementation of the IFMS. You will remember that we had an oversight visit to SITA just to understand as a committee what is this concept of IFMS is all about. It was triggered by the issue of delay in the audit outcomes by the Auditor General, where there was a misunderstanding between the two, that's National Treasury and Auditor General. And it affected us as a committee to process the B3RR. So we felt that we have to visit SITA and see for ourselves what is this concept all about. And we have been taken through the SITA complex, and we don't remember seeing anything called the IFMS on that day. So it's something else, and we raised the matter with the minister when we met him the following day at National Treasury, that we were worried about this project called IFMS. And the minister has got views on how that matter of IFMS should be processed. I think we'll come to that later. So ours as the Parliament is to play oversight. If 2.6 billion rand has been spent on this project, there has to be evidence that you have spent this money on this project, and here is what this is what we have done as government. Because here we're dealing with public funds, and as public representatives, we have to report to public what their money has been used for. Is there a value that you can point to the 2.6 billion, except buying the license from Oracle? These are the issues that have to be responded to. Then we'll decide as to how do we take this matter forward. And I think at some stage we might have to meet the minister or the ministers who are responsible for this project, because it looks like there is a committee of ministers who are dealing with this matter. Be that as it may, let's proceed. Are there apologies?
Good morning, sir. I didn't receive any apologies.
Yeah, there is the standing apology of Honorable Maswale, who is not well, but recovering. We wish him a speedy recovery. And this morning, Honorable Abraham is attending the funeral of a brother, as it was reported in the last meeting. Condolences to her and to the family. She indicated that if time permits, she can log in, but we understand what she's going through. So those are the apologies that I have from my side. Let's proceed to item 3, presentation or briefing by National Treasury. National Treasury, over to you.
Good morning to the Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of the Standing Committee on Finance, staff of Parliament, the media, officials on the call. Chairperson, we do have a presentation which we will be presenting this morning. It is a joint presentation which will
Mr. Khan, we have lost you. Usekhona Mr. Khan lapha in the platform. I can see his face and the screen, but it's like he's having a connectivity challenge.
Yes, he is on the platform, Chairperson. If maybe you could switch on his video.
Mr. Khan, are you there?
We've lost him.
Let's hope you will reconnect. Colleagues from Treasury, SITA, and DPSA, where's Mr. Khan? Can you try to call him? Or any one of you, because you say it's a joint presentation, can you proceed? Remember, we have got a tight program in Parliament. We're processing budgets. So members.
Good morning, Chair. Apologies. This is Laura Mseme, Acting COO of National Treasury. We are, in fact, trying to get Mr. Khan back onto the platform, and apologies for that. What I can suggest, Chair, recognizing your time, is that this is a joint presentation, as we indicated, between the partnerships that are responsible for the IFMS, namely National Treasury, DPSA, and SITA. I suggest, Chair, if you will allow us, we'll go straight into the presentation. It will be jointly presented between Treasury will begin the presentation, and SITA will come in, as well as the DPSA, and then we can move into questions. By that time, I'm sure Mr. Khan will be back on the platform and can take the process forward. So, Chair, if you will allow us, I'll ask Dick Haledi, who is the Chief Director, IFMS at National Treasury, to take us through the beginning of the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's proceed as you suggest.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, delegates, and colleagues. My name is Dick Haledi, representing National Treasury. I'll be presenting to you the IFMS. The National Treasury had an oversight visit from SCOF, which took place in March. The purpose of that visit was to obtain a briefing on the IFMS. And in that meeting, the National Treasury demonstrated the current legacy systems. We had a walkabout of the legacy systems, and we presented some of the functionalities that the legacy systems currently have, so that we can understand and take the committee through the SEs in terms of the systems that we're currently using, which will be replaced by the IFMS, so we can better understand the transition to the IFMS. We then took the committee through the technical functionalities of the IFMS system, which is due for implementation. We have procured the software for the IFMS system, and we then took the committee through the software to see the functionalities that we will be implementing when the IFMS implementation is initiated. It was in that meeting where the committee requested that a follow-up briefing session be held with all the IFMS partners, and today is the date for that follow-up meeting in this meeting. In terms of progress, since the last meeting held with the SCOF committee, there has been progress on two main areas. One is governance. In terms of governance, you would remember, colleagues, in the previous meeting, we indicated that there was an MOU that was to be signed by the partners. And indeed, National Treasury and SITA have signed that MOU. The MOU is currently with the DPSA for signature. It is undergoing their internal processes. It is yet to be signed, but there is engagements with the DPSA in that regard. In terms of implementation, we had indicated that the IFMS is not yet implemented, and we had undergone through a number of procurement processes which were not successful. But since the previous meeting, we have issued an RFI to consider the implementation of the latest technology of the solution that we have procured. The SITA and the IFMS partners are currently gathering a team which will review the RFI response and then be able to provide a recommendation. And that recommendation will then inform the procurement strategy that the IFMS will embark on in order to obtain an implementer. And that implementer will be tasked with the implementation of the system for pilot purposes at selected departments, so that we can set and test the system at those few departments, which will set then a basis for national implementation. The implementation and the piloting is planned to be initiated in this financial year, as we are already in the advanced stages in terms of the review of the RFI, as well as entering into that procurement processes, and engagements have been held with all the relevant stakeholders. One of the considerations on the IFMS, as I've indicated, is the implementation of the latest technology. We do note that the procured software, which was procured in 2016, has advanced. There is an option for the National Treasury to implement the cloud solution, and this is the basis for that RFI, so that the National Treasury and the IFMS as a program can get more details and understand in detail what the technology entails, cost implications, and how the transition will work before we implement that technology. We do note that there is a circular from the Department of the DPSA, which says departments should consider cloud first before implementing current solution. And it is in that light that the program is also adopting this and seeing how this can be implemented to benefit the program. I will then, Chair, through you, ask our SITA colleagues to go into the details of the importance of cloud consideration for the program, as this is one of the key technology components that the program is currently undergoing at this stage. Chair, through you, if you can allow me for my SITA colleagues to assist further on the slide.
Thank you, Dikeledi. Thank you, Chair. My name is Dr. Mongani Mabaso. If you can stay on the cloud presentation, and I just want to add further color on the importance of the consideration for cloud. Now, with cloud, the main benefit that we're looking for is scalability, cost efficiency, and high availability. So since the IFMS program has started, advances in technology, especially around cloud, have prompted a change in approach with regards to how it was done before. So the current implementation was based on an on-prem solution, which will not be supportable beyond 2032. And so based on that, the team sat down and decided that a cloud-based solution would make more sense going forward with regards to IFMS. And the main solution we looked at from a cloud perspective is called software as a service, which means that the partner that we're looking for will do the upgrades, the support, both second and third level, all the technical upgrades going forward, the security enhancements and underlying infrastructure. And of course, they'll be partnered by SITA to ensure that from a regulatory perspective, data residency and compliance, that the provider is compliant. We'll also make sure that from a data residency perspective, that the data that is at rest is stored within our data center so that we can protect that information. And in the event, the unlikely event that whomever the provider is might go under, that we can still recover that information and be able to rebuild the application. And so that is the main reason why we've considered cloud. From a cost perspective, it is pay per use, which means that the cost scales up as the number of users increase. So it is a very cost efficient model of operation. And then secondly, with regards to how we then implement, it is a faster means of implementation because it is software as a service. And so typically how that works is you want to take the features out of the box as much as possible and limit customization. In that way, you can fast track your implementation, which is why we are recommending that we go the cloud-based route. If you go any other route, then you have to go through extensive amounts of user requirements gathering, the designing of business processes, which can further delay the project even further, where software as a service implementation has been built out of the box to look at all the various modules which are highly commoditized. And so we're recommending that taking the modules as far as is possible out the box can accelerate that implementation and ensure that we can catch up lost time. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to hand back to you, Dikeledi.
Okay, thank you. In terms of program stakeholders, we did present that the National Treasury is the project sponsor and it is the department that is mandated with the implementation of the IFMS. However, we do have partners, partners being the DPSA, who has a role to play. And I'll ask the DPSA to come in and detail their role in the program. We also have the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. They've been brought into the program as the SITA currently is administered and within the Department of Communications and Digital Technology. So they come and oversee policy and legislations and oversee SITA's activities in the program, and they provide the advisory services jointly with SITA where required. I will ask the DPSA to come in and detail their roles and responsibilities in the program, and this will be followed by SITA's roles and responsibilities in the next slide. Chair, through you, if you allow me to hand over to the DPSA to provide the detail on their roles and responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. This is Yoli Swa, the DG DPSA. We have Acting DDG Dumisani Hlophe, who's responsible to oversee this work within our remunerations and information systems work that we do as DPSA. With your permission, I would request that he takes over and speak. Chair, I don't know if you can hear me, but it seems Dumisani is not online. Therefore, I'll just take you through briefly the role that DPSA is playing on the project. We do provide advisory services and assistance to the IFMS program in respect of norms and standards, which is mainly the role of DPSA, norms and standards for electronic government. So the circular that was issued as part of cloud requirements is part of that work that we provide from an advisory capacity, and it's across the government department. So the implementation processes for IFMS, we will therefore issue the relevant circulars and directives once we have concluded some of the procurement processes that currently Treasury and SITA are involved in. The second issue is around our role to develop and facilitate approval of the relevant processes, procedures, and policies impacted by the human resource management components of the IFMS solution. The third area is facilitating and promoting the implementation and uptake of the processes and policies in implementing departments. I think I've also touched on this point earlier on, that we will provide the necessary norms and standards for implementing departments. And lastly, facilitate that members of GTOC, which is the government CIOs, participate at a strategic and operational levels, as well as facilitate the reporting of relevant decisions and information to the GTOC members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who's the next to present?
Thank you, Chair. It's Dr. Mabaso again. If you can go to the next slide, please, Chair.
Sir, to detail their roles and responsibilities in the next slide.
Thank you. So with regards to SITA's role in the implementation, this is exactly aligned to the MOU that we've signed between Treasury and SITA, and that is currently under review by DPSA. So the first thing that SITA will be doing is the technical program management. We have established a PMO in my office directly that will be managing the activities within this program that works hand in glove with the program management within Treasury. We will be looking at putting together a team to review the technical responses within the RFI. And so this will be done jointly with the colleagues from Treasury as well as DPSA to ensure that the processes and the technologies that are proposed in that RFI are up to task. They make sense for the proposal that we are looking for. We'll also be ensuring that the publishing and contracting of the tender is done appropriately and on time. As I've said, this will be something that will be managed directly within my office with direct oversight. The next thing that SITA will be doing is the technical readiness assessments, and this has multiple legs underneath it. It talks to the readiness around systems integration. As members will be aware, there are many systems underneath that will feed information to the IFMS. And so making sure that from a technical readiness perspective, that those systems are prepared and are ready, that the data that needs to be shared is available and shareable. The next thing around technical readiness assessment is around data and client migration. Typically in programs of this size, data and client migration can be a huge stumbling block, especially if it's not planned upfront. And so understanding where the data sources are and now they'll be migrated from on-prem onto the cloud-based solution is quite critical. And so this is one of the things that we'll be doing in partnership with the partner that will be appointed. The next one is with regards to vendor management, especially when it comes to cloud-based solutions. It is quite different to manage a vendor that provides licenses for you to implement something on-prem versus a vendor that implements a cloud-based solution. There are some different practices that one has to apply there. For instance, with a cloud-based vendor, one has to ensure that the data in transit and the data at rest is treated differently. So the data in transit, we have to make sure that the vendor does encrypt so that it's not something that is available to be in the open internet. Secondly, the data at rest, we have to ensure that that data is persisted within our own data centers to minimize the risk from whomever the partner will be, of them going down, and then we don't have access to that information. And then, of course, there's the data that needs to be processed, which the vendor will process to transform the information to the outcome that we're looking for from an IFMS perspective. The next one is around security evaluation. And this, just to clarify, is talking to cybersecurity to ensure that the system end-to-end, both from a login perspective, so when a user logs in, all the way to the back office, that the necessary level of protection is applied to ensure that it is secure. The next is around support and maintenance through the establishment of a COE. So SITA is in parallel establishing a COE to ensure that in the long term, this program can be supported successfully. And that is not something that is an afterthought, especially for a program of this magnitude. And then the last one is around transversal data management. I think I've already mentioned around the persistence of the data at rest to ensure that there is that separation and that we can always have access to that information, regardless of the state of the vendor going forward. Thank you, Chair. I'm going to hand back to Dikeledi. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, in terms of implementation, we're looking at 3 legs here. First being stabilization. We have presented that there were currently some investigations that were underway on the program and in some instances impacting on progress. We are looking at stabilizing and having those investigations completed. As at the last report that we received from the SIU on the 25th of April, they've indicated that the SIU investigation will be completed by the end of April 2023. We've also taken steps to address the delays and the challenges that we face in terms of procurement. There is strong partnership with SITA, and SITA is on board as they've presented to ensure that we appoint a service provider, and we also go through the necessary processes in terms of the RFI to ensure that the transition to the cloud, if need be, has been evaluated and they've provided the relevant advice in terms of that transition. The MOU has with the DPSA, other partners have signed, and we are engaging with the DPSA in terms of progress for that MOU, and they have reported that it is going their internal processes to get it signed. The other area that we're looking at is the renegotiation of the current contract. In the AGSA report, they have recommended that the National Treasury should look into negotiating the Oracle contract. There has been engagements with Oracle in that regard, and 2 aspects were key to these negotiations. One, the consideration of the cloud, as we have presented, in terms of us implementing the first implementation being on a cloud solution. However, there are some processes and information that is required in order for us to make a decision and then transition into that. And that's where SITA and the other partners are playing a very key role to assist the program to ensuring that the right recommendation and decisions are taken in terms of the migration. We're also engaging with the AGSA to perform a real-time audit on this process to ensure that when the transition to cloud recommendation and decision is made, the AGSA is party to that to make sure that the process is audited and we've done the right things, and it is in compliance with the prescripts and there are no risks in the transition. In terms of the license support and maintenance, this has been the source of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure as reported by the AGSA, and the recommendation was that that area of the program needs to be renegotiated. We have engaged Oracle and we have negotiated, and in the previous financial year, no cost was incurred on the support and maintenance fees until a point where a decision on the cloud is taken. And we note, the committee should note that while the support and maintenance costs have not been incurred through those negotiations that are currently underway, our users are receiving the support that they need on the systems that are currently live in the IFMS license estate. So that has been a success to the program and the partnership that we have with the service provider to ensure that what has been a challenge in the IFMS is addressed. We anticipate that the negotiations will be completed in this financial year, and after the negotiations have been completed, we should then be moving into implementation. In terms of rollout, we plan to implement the system, and as I've presented, we will start first by piloting it to ensure that it is ready to be replicated throughout government, and the piloting will be completed in this financial year, and the rollout will follow immediately thereafter. We're looking at the time it will take for us to conclude the RFI process as well as the procurement, and then start with this implementation. Assessments have been done to look at the timelines, and we are comfortable that in this financial year we'll be able to start with the pilot and followed by implementation in the later stages of the year going into the next financial year. the high-level implementation plan. What we are looking at is to prioritize some of the functionalities that are critical in the modernization and automation of the public service. The key functionalities that will be accelerated will be the e-recruitment. This is the automation of the recruitment process so that we move departments from manual process into a digitized process in the recruitment space. The same will be done in the automation of procurement in the supply chain space. We currently have legacy systems that are playing a role, but those systems are limited, and therefore this is one of the key focus areas that will be accelerated in the implementation, and this will be some of the first 3 modules that will be implemented, firstly piloted, and then move into the implementation, and they will be followed by the other modules in the entire system. And the other one that is key is the budgeting module. This is used by the National Treasury and the provinces, and it will also be accelerated in terms of implementation so that departments move from spreadsheets into a more digitized system. The system contains many other functionalities as we have presented in the previous visit. However, there has to be prioritization, and at this stage, these are the modules that are prioritized for implementation. We do know that there are other technical aspects that needs to be in place in order for us to activate these modules, but those will be incorporated in our plans. When it comes to implementation, the project will implement in a phased approach. We currently have dissected it into 3 phases. Phase 1 has been completed, and the output of that phase was the procurement of the licenses and establishing a governance structure in the form of a PMO at the National Treasury that was completed in 2016. And then the phase 2 was what we call the envisioning phase, and this is the phase that after we procure the licenses, we go through the system and we develop our strategies in terms of change management strategies, the architecture of the system, and finally have what we call a blueprint for the program that was completed in 2019. Following that stage, the program should move into implementation. However, before we start implementation, we had to undergo through procurement, and as we've reported, there has been a number of procurement processes that were not successful, but we are at a stage where we have restarted a new process, and we are still in the RFI stage, and all the partners are playing part to ensure that we successfully appoint a service provider and we start with implementation in this financial year. What we will start is with piloting the system. There will be a few departments that are selected to participate in the piloting. However, at a technical level, we are able to open participation in the pilot stage to other departments. So some of the questions asked will be, when we pilot, is it only just going to be those selected departments? There is a way to technically allow participants from other departments to be able to come and familiarize themselves with the system that will be implemented during the piloting and quality assurance stages. And also there will be change management initiatives that we will be embarking on to ensure that there is ease in the transition and the adoption of the system, moving from legacy into the new IFMS. The last phase is once we've successfully piloted the system, we then will then be implementing it nationally throughout the national and provincial departments. The approach there will be that we do note that we will need extensive capacity to implement. Therefore, we will be establishing a panel of implementers throughout the country to take what has been successfully piloted and then go and implement it in the different departments so that we maintain centralization in terms of functionalities, and there's uniformity in terms of us using one system that has been given the sign off as the baseline for national implementation. Currently, where we are in phase 2B and 2C, which includes the piloting of the system. We have what we call pilot sites and lead sites, but that will be detailed in the plan in terms of which departments those are and how these departments will participate in the pilot. But we do note that the partners and the policy departments that play a role will be part of pilot, which means the DPSA will be piloting the systems, and National Treasury will be piloting the systems, noting that National Treasury is the policy owner for the supply chain space, as well as the finance and the budgeting, and the DPSA comes in on the HR aspect. And so in this integrated system, we need those that are policy owners to ensure that the system is, they perform the necessary quality assurance and give us the sign off and the green light for us to release the functionalities and implement them. And then other departments at national and provincial level will then be brought in to participate and represent the rest of the departments. There will be other structures that will also be brought in from a GTOC aspect, as well as other areas within government that we deem appropriate to form part of pilot. And that also includes automatically SITA, who will be playing a very critical role in the piloting and implementation. The current status where we are is the next milestones that we seek to achieve is the appointment of a service provider, so we can start with implementation, and then we need to then pilot e-recruitment, e-procurement, and the budgeting capabilities. The other modules of the system will then be implemented in line with the plan, as there has to be consultation with the specialists, the service providers that will be onboarded to guide the program in terms of the order of implementation. The approach is that we will not wait for the entire system to be developed, as that will take long. Through the functionalities and the software that we are looking at, especially the cloud, although it can also be achieved to a degree in the on-prem solution that we currently have, there is a way of us releasing these functionalities one by one, so that departments can start using what is ready while we are finalizing the other modules that may take a bit longer to complete. So that's what we call the accelerated implementation of these modules. So the system will be, the modules will be released as and when they are ready, and they will follow a certain order, but there has been priority placed on the 3 modules that I've indicated on the presentation. So once we conclude the assessment of the cloud implementation through that RFI process, we will then be guided by the supply chain stakeholders, as well as SITA, in terms of the procurement strategy that we need to adopt, and then we'll then implement that strategy and start our procurement process. And in terms of where we are, that should be completed in this financial year, and then implementation and the piloting should start in this financial year. Still, a lot of work has gone into assessing what is possible, how long it will take these modules. However, we also need to then have a detailed joint planning with the onboarded service provider in order for us to produce a final plan that will be adopted by the structures of the program, and then for us to start rolling out. But the technical assessments were conducted with the DPSA on the HR aspect, National Treasury in terms of the supply chain and the budgeting and the financial aspect, so that we are sure that the system does meet our requirement and it can perform the work that the legacy systems are currently performing, and even bring improvements, and that has been concluded. Once we complete with pilot, we will then roll out the modules nationally. As I've indicated, the same approach for national implementation is that the approach is that for each module that is ready, it will then be implemented nationally. So we will not wait for the entire system to be completed before departments receive the functionalities. Thank you, Chair. I'll hand over to you. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, colleagues from Treasury, DPSA, and SITA. Let me welcome the Deputy Minister of DPSA, Honorable Dr. Pilani Majake. You are welcome, Togoden, with your team. There we are.
Thank you, Chair.
Re a leboha, Togoden.
Ra leboga, modulasetulo.
A le nyaka ho ba le mantswenyana le fa political direction ka hore re buile the administrative part.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to welcome the presentations that have been made. And also just to say that I've really noted your concerns in your introductions, which are just genuine, because IFMS has been a frustration over years. And to some extent also, what we need to be assisted with is to understand why such a long delay. I've heard you also really wanting to understand about Oracle and the contract that we've got with Oracle that has actually ended up in amounting to 6 billion rands as to what is it that we're actually paying them for. And I think these are the aspects of this IFMS that really needs to be clarified. It has taken really too long, and it just didn't take really too long. It has actually delayed digitization, modernization, and connectivity across government to the extent that it was actually not allowing whatever was innovative ideas that were coming from other government departments. I'm happy to listen to the presentation. You know, it sounds good when you listen to it. It creates hope. But what one wonders is, why has it taken so long? It's something that I still need to really understand. And I can hear about the participation of DPSA, which is linked to policy and policy directives. But I think the answers lies in Treasury in terms of this product that has seen its life through 3 presidents, President Mbeki, Zuma, and now Ramaphosa. And one other thing that actually, excuse me, Chairperson, one thing also that is a concern is the piloting that's going to take up to next year. It's not going to allow you to manage to monitor this up to where you can say by the time I was in office, IFMS was implemented in a form of a pilot. And to say this is what I've actually managed to observe. And this is what we think IFMS is. What I'm trying to say is that we need to try and shorten the piloting so that it doesn't take too long. I couldn't quite, let me drink water a bit, I couldn't quite get the date for the beginning of the implementation of the pilot process. If I can get a date, it will be very much helpful. I'm now drinking water.
Okay, no problem, Togoden.
Yes, I've finished drinking water, Chairperson.
Okay, okay, sure.
Yes. So those are the concerns that I've got. And I think the committee needs to actually really have a clear understanding of what really caused the delay. And now what is coming out is that the route that they took earlier didn't really work out in terms of the license with Oracle. But now we're going to take the iCloud route, and it's going to actually have to require some vendors and all of that. What has failed in the other one that is related to the license is what also is important as we graduate to this one of iCloud. And why right at the beginning didn't we identify how easy it could be for us to actually utilize the iCloud instead of the license that we had? And I think that the one major issue that has been identified, which I do agree with, is the security issues when we have to use this iCloud and the different types of vendors, the way they're actually talking about it, to the extent that maybe that in itself needs to be further deliberated on. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Deputy Minister, Dr. Majake, for your input. There we are, honorable members. Let's engage with the presentation, the briefing from the, and the other issue, Dr. Majak, before you depart. The other time when we were at SITA, we were told that the other problem that delayed the implementation was that the Minister of DPSA withdrew from participation in the IFMS project. And now the matter is back to the minister. He or she is considering, yeah, it's she now. The minister is considering coming back to participate. So that was the point that was raised, that DPSA, through the office of the minister, withdrew from this project. So it made it very difficult for the other parties to continue with the implementation. Is there a substance to that statement, Dr. Deputy Minister?
There is substance to that statement, but I think we shouldn't just say minister withdrew. We must actually also indicate that Minister Drodro withdrew out of the frustration of this IFMS, that she had a feeling that it's not moving. And then what was the main problem was that if IFMS was not really moving, it was actually then becoming a debilitating factor to advancement of technology across government, because DPSA did come up with electronic Z83 form. I think it was in 2019 already. And along the way that had to be stopped, and it was stopped on account of on the basis of the fact that it was going to be part of the IFMS process or program. And that in itself was really frustrating. And I wouldn't actually speak on her behalf, but I'm not just indicating what I understand to have been a huge frustration for her. And it wasn't only a frustration to her. If you talk to other departments and other ministers, I'm sure they will tell you of the kind of frustrations they've had when they had technological initiatives and we were told, no, this is going to be part of IFMS. So it really caused a lot of delays in technological advancement of government. And that this is why I'm saying even today's presentation would have really been helpful if it was actually managing to assist us to understand what the delay was all about. It's almost 20 years. If I'm saying it's something that has seen the life of 3 presidents, from President Mbeki to President Zuma to President Ramaphosa. What is it that has actually delayed the processes? What is important? Because I'm sure even the amount of money that we talk about, we might say it's too much money, but if it's over 20 years also, maybe it's justifiable. But what has delayed this thing? What was so impossible for 20 years for us to really manage to come up with this IFMS, which is almost supposed to, or is viewed as a silver bullet to connectivity, digitization, and modernization of government? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. Deputy Minister. Over to you, honorable members. There's the presentation on the update on the IFMS. Mhlonishwa Skosane, Honorable Dr. George. Mhlonishwa Skosane.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo hloniphekileko ngilotshisa amalunga hloniphekileko nosekela ngqongqotjhe uDr. Pilane Majake nama representatives from National Treasury, DPSA, and SITA. Yeah, no, we welcome the presentation. You will pardon me because due to load shedding, I might not have captured everything. I might have missed maybe some of my questions. I might raise things that were covered in the presentation. But one, my first question is, while these piloting processes of this IFMS project that is going to take place now, what will be the impact of that process on the audit of the National Treasury by the AG? Because what triggered us in the main to go there and inquire about this thing, it was the impact that this IFMS, the negative impact that the IFMS had on the audit outcomes by the AG. So while this process is, as they've outlined them, that from now, maybe till next year, there will be piloting project, what impact will that have on the audit process of the National Treasury by the Auditor General? Secondly, how long will it take for the final product to be delivered? I think I've missed that. I've heard about the piloting and stuff like that. But how long will it take for the final product of this IFMS to be delivered? And thirdly, what gives SITA, DPSA, National Treasury the confidence that this time around, this project will be successful, taking into consideration that it previously taken too long and it was not successful? I mean, for more than a decade and a half or so, it was not successful. So what gives them confidence that this time around, this project is going to be successful? And lastly, what are the financial implications of this new avenue that they are taking into account that a lot of money has already been spent on this particular project? What will be the financial implications now? Ngiyathokoza, Sihlalo.
Thokoza thina Mhlonishwa. Dr. George, Honorable Shibambo.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks for the presentation. Well, we all know that implementing a system, a new system, such a large one, is notoriously difficult. So it is not an easy process and can get very expensive. They can get scope creep and it gets out of hand very quickly. What I've heard today, I must say, does not particularly inspire confidence, because what I would be looking for if I was looking at a project of this size, and also it's taken so long, and bearing in mind that this is the people's money, and it's very easy to waste and spend a lot of money and get nowhere on IT systems, etc. So what I would want to see is two things. Firstly, and it was mentioned by the previous speaker, is a detailed financial schedule, a very simple, easily understandable one that indicates what has been spent so far on this project, because it certainly sounds like a lot has. So how much has been spent so far? And then what is the actual projected spend? Because I saw that there is a licensing fee of some kind per user as it increases, but I mean, there's no detail on that. So that's often where the problem lies, is that it's hidden stuff that you don't particularly realize until you start using the system, and then there's this hidden license fees, and then it starts to escalate, etc. And then are the fees on rand or are they in dollars, etc. Those are things that are fundamentally important. So that is what I would want to see: a simple financial schedule. What's been spent? What is the actual spend, including all the license fees, etc. Unless I missed it, but I didn't see it. and then also a timeline. Now, everybody has said that this has taken for a long time, etc. Well, you know, can't change the past, you can fix the future. So there needs to be a clear timeline. Any project, in any business in the world would say, right, we're starting on this day, we are doing this pilot, and it's going to last from day this to day that. And then we plan this thing to be finished. And if it's in phases, phase 1 will be done by this date, and it will be rolled out here. And then we will check the pilots, and then we will go forward. So that is needed, because that is why this project, I suppose, has been going on forever, is because there isn't a clear timeline. And then when deadlines are not met, people can be held to account. So if you say the pilot starts in, I don't know, starts in June and it ends in December, 6 months, end of that, you assess it, and then, well, it's either done or not. And if it isn't, well, then you can find out why, because these projects are very complicated to do. So that's what I'm looking for, a very simple understanding of the financial modeling here, and a very clear timeline as to when the things that need to happen are going to happen. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Dr. George. Honorable Shibam.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Like, I know as a matter of fact that the Auditor General's office has always had a huge concern about National Treasury's continuous and senseless expenditure on the IFMS for a very long time. I think the directed questions that we should get responses to is how much has been spent thus far on the IMFS, the National Treasury, just how much money has been spent on the entire system. That is one. Two is, what would happen if we were to remove the system altogether? Is the sky going to fall? Or, because it looks like this system has been forced into government for a very long time, and it is not giving any fruits. It's not giving us any benefits in any way, but billions of rands are being spent on trying to force a system which practically is not there. Why can't we just remove the whole thing? Like, and who is benefiting out of it? Who are the people who are benefiting out of the billions of rand which National Treasury is spending on a system which is not coming alive and is not helping government to achieve anything? Who owns this IMFS? Who are the people behind it? I think that is going to give us a far much more clearer direction and understanding, Chair, if we were to know that who are the recipients of the monies which the AG has been saying that this is senseless and wasteful expenditure for many years, like for almost all the audit outcomes of National Treasury have always highlighted the discrepancies that are associated with IFMS. Who is benefiting out of the monies that are spent by National Treasury on this things? And the much more specific question which must be responded here is just how much exactly has been spent thus far, and what will happen if we were to dismiss the entire system and then opt for what is there, or some alternate system except IFMS, which has been forced into National Treasury without any positive consequences? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Shibambo. Those are the hands so far. Let me go back to the team, DPSA, National Treasury, SITA. Deputy Minister, you will come towards the end before I do the concluding remarks. For now, let's allow the officials to respond to the questions raised by honorable members. Officials, there you are. Can you please respond to all the questions raised by members?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the honorable members for those.
Mr. Khan, switch off your video. That's creating problem. You were the first last time to present, then you disappeared. Then again now you come and then you are disappearing. Into enjani le? Waphuma wa disappear. Digelet, can you take over and with your colleagues?
Chair, I was going to suggest maybe we can just handle one issue as DPSA that affects us, and then maybe Mr. Khan would be back by then.
Okay, DG, proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think from our part as DPSA, there's a question on how, there's a question that the Honorable Member has asked about. I think it relates to how will we know the system is going to work. I think what I'd like to highlight is that there is a need to have a system in place to help us with dealing with issues of HR management in the public service. Our currently PESAL is very outdated and it's a legacy system, and we struggle a lot with data that is useful in terms of even assessing some of the trends and doing analysis in respect to public service employees or employees in the public sector broadly. So there is a need for a system. It may not be IFMS, it may be another system. Perhaps if colleagues involved in this project in taking forward the questions of the committee could also look at what other possibilities are there, I don't know, but I just want to underscore the need. Then the last issue I just wanted to highlight for us is that there was a report earlier on that the MOU is still with DPSA and it's being processed by DPSA. And I want to confirm that we have the MOU. We have raised a few issues with Treasury in respect to the current MOU that's on our table. And one of the concerns that I have as an accounting officer is that there is an expectation for DPSA to deliver and provide support on certain areas in relation to the e-chapter. There is a requirement for advisory services to be provided. But currently as a department, we do not have the capability, no project management, direct project management support, expertise that relates to the e-chapter, that relates to the HR chapter that we're supposed to be rolling out. We have raised the matters with Treasury, and we are continuing to have a conversation. There is a project management team that is based in Treasury that's supporting this work, but it's not clear how that technical expertise can be accessed and commit to supporting us in rolling out the e-services, the EHR chapter, because we currently as the department do not have capability built in our structure for that, and we don't have resources. We are still struggling because I think the 2020 budget cuts affected us a lot as a department. We had to lose about 60 vacant positions in the department. So we don't have a situation where we're able to finance immediately the need. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, DG. Who's next?
Chair, it's Shabir Khan again. I'm joining off another device, if that's okay with you, if I can come in at this point.
Okay, you're welcome.
Chair, there was a question from Honorable Kosana around the pilot projects and as well as the impact of the rollout of the pilot projects on the audit outcome. Chair, what we can advise is that in our discussions with Oracle, who is the appointed service provider, we've managed to negotiate that no fees or no maintenance fees would be paid in the 2022-2023 financial year. And as a result, based on the recommendations from the Auditor General, we have managed to renegotiate that with the service provider. And in terms of the impact, because no money was here, the entire discussion on whether those money spent will be regarded as fruitless and wasteful, that discussion won't happen because of no money is being spent. But be it as it may, I think our discussions with the Auditor General has become quite fruitful in the sense that we've also initiated discussions with them on a real-time audit, considering the significance of the project and based on the oversight visit in March. The Minister of Finance has given a clear instruction to the team that we move with implementation as soon as possible, and whatever we need to ensure the successful outcome of the project, we must pursue that. So in our discussions with the Auditor General, we would be pursuing a real-time audit, and really what the real-time audit will do is really provide some comfort on some of the processes being followed, but also give the confidence to the implementing partners that the project and that the processes which need to be followed for the project implementation that has been adhered to. So I think that's quite a significant way or significant boost to the project, and that's something will really assist the project going forward. In terms of the timelines, Chair, the key dependency on the project moving forward is the appointment of an implementing service provider. If you look at the project delays in the past since IFMS 2 was presented, the successful procurement of a service provider has been really the root cause of why the project hasn't moved forward or hasn't changed gears from phase 2 to phase 3. We would be able to provide a much more clear timeline once the service provider has been appointed, and really we will be able to provide at the next briefing on once we manage to secure that service providers their services, and we'll be able to provide a much more detailed plan. The financial implications of the new model, it's really a completely different model in the sense that it's no longer where Treasury and its partners will be procuring infrastructure to support this very big integrated financial management system, but it's really a pay-per-use model, which is a very different model. And we're working quite closely with SITA, who would assist us with the evaluation of the RFI that was issued in the last month or so, and they would really provide us some of the technical evaluation. We'll also be providing some additional due diligence and get some experts from industry to really assist us to fully understand this. Honorable George has raised quite critical questions in terms of the project size. I think the magnitude of the project requires us to really think out of the box. Hence, our discussions with the Auditor General, the discussions with the new Managing Director of SITA has been quite valuable because it's quite important that we get all the required technical resources on board to enable us to actually deliver on the program. The detailed financial schedule that can be provided in terms of what was spent thus far. I think in our presentation in March, we have indicated what was spent thus far. I don't have the figure in front of me, but I think it was in the region of around just over 2 billion rand. The hidden license fees, hidden costs, yes, that's always a risk. We've also initiated discussions with our legal team to ensure that we also have the correct legal resources on board to ensure that we fully protect not just the National Treasury, but the state in terms of what these type of contracts entail, but also to ensure that the interests of the state are fully covered, and things like additional or hidden license fees and hidden costs will certainly be taken on board. The timeline, Honorable George, yes, that's quite clear. Our instruction from the Minister of Finance is that we move into an implementation mode, whilst we understand that there's a need to account for what happened in the past. And I think the Deputy Minister of Public Service and Administration has asked those questions, but it's also important that whilst we have a team on board and with the new managing director of SITA as well, who has clearly indicated that he will set up a project management office in the CEO's office as well. I think that has given us the comfort that this project is receiving the attention from the leadership that it requires. So the clear timelines, Honorable George, that we will finalize, and we will provide a much more detailed timeline with clear implementation once this process of appointing a service provider is complete. Honorable Shivambu, money spent, we've presented that in the oversight visit. In the oversight visit to Treasury and SITA's offices in March, one of the key objectives was to also demonstrate to the Standing Committee on Finance the risks to the project should IFMS not materialize. We currently have very old, legacy systems. The technology in these systems are outdated, and really the support for these systems really come from resources that are no longer in existence, but really using resources that the service providers who we utilize has indicated that at some point they would no longer be able to support these systems. So it's quite critical we move into IFMS. It is an integrated solution, but also we employ some of the new technologies that will benefit us. As a former CFO, just to prepare a set of annual financial statements, it takes hours at end to actually prepare financial statements, and with an integrated system, all this time will be greatly reduced, as we will be able to get a lot more value out of this. Currently, the contract that was awarded in 2016 was, we have reported in the past, it's been awarded to Oracle. Currently, Oracle is the appointed service provider, and we're currently in negotiations with them. And really, I think the discussions with the Auditor General, as well as some of the discussions with the Standing Committee on Finance, has really assisted us in taking some of these recommendations forward. Chair, if I can also maybe just respond, I think the Deputy Minister of Public Service has raised quite critical questions around the timelines. I think it's a given fact that this project is more than a decade old, and at various points, cabinet memos taken to cabinet setting out exactly the status on the project. So IFMS 1 was largely dealt with a solution in which it was really a customized solution in which largely SITA led. There was a research done based at that point, I think in 2013. The World Bank assisted with that. There was also an Ernst & Young report. And I think SITA also appointed Gartner to really see whether that was the most optimum solution. Based on that, they advised that a different approach be embarked. Hence, IFMS 2 was initiated. And at that point, National Treasury did went to Cabinet and really to also obtain, to inform Cabinet, but also to obtain Cabinet's approval on the different approach, which IFMS 2 was largely to get a court solution, which is really a solution that's really out of the box, would minimize customization, but really to get a solution that really is fit for purpose for government's use. I've also been advised by the team that in 2017, we also made a presentation to the Standing Committee on Finance on the move towards IFMS 2. And really, whilst we note that this project has been severely delayed, the the request from the Minister of Finance to the team, as well as in our discussion with SITA, we really need to move forward with implementation. Honorable Chair, I'll pause at this point, and obviously my colleagues from SITA, if they would like to also add, they're most welcome to do so. Thank you so much.
Chairperson, like, can you be given the amount of money that has been spent on IFMS? Don't tell us that this person who just spoke now says that we told you before. Can you tell us how much money was spent on IFMS and who is benefiting out of it? Is that a simple question?
Honorable Shibama. Mr. Khan, Madam Project Manager, Digrade.
Chair, if I can perhaps may ask Madam Ms. Dikeledi Dibia to, she's got the exact figure with her. Dikeledi, are you able to provide the exact amount that was spent thus far?
Yes, Chair, through you. The IFMS 1 and the IFMS 2 has spent 2.4 billion to date. I'm just looking at what I have, the latest report that I have. So IFMS 1 has spent 779 million as at 2013. And IFMS 2 was approved by Cabinet in 2013, and the expenditure to date is 1.6 billion on the entire IFMS 2, so they're totaling to 2.4 billion. Thank you.
So this money was spent on the license only, isn't it? Because there is no service that has been provided so far, as all of us have been there. So we know very well what's happening at the SITA complex. There's no service being provided. So it was only spent on Oracle. Because Mr. Shibam, Honorable Shibam is asking how much has been spent. Then you have given a breakdown of the two amounts. And then can you go to the next step and say, this money has been spent on the following service providers, if you have that information. If not, you will put it in writing.
Yes, there were services and there were licenses. As I'm indicating, there's IFMS 1 cost, which was closed, and then there's IFMS 2. So we do have the detail for IFMS 2, but we can provide in writing. But just to highlight, just to give high-level information, for IFMS 2, there's cost associated to software licenses, there's cost associated to licenses support and maintenance. There's the professional services on the work that has been completed in the previous phases where we're doing architecture planning and strategies. There's also work in the change management space, and as well as the project management services that we're managing the phases that were completed in 2019. There are also some operational expenses that we had to incur with SITA, and also some hosting services that we incurred with SITA. So these were the cost elements for IFMS 2, but we can provide the detail further in writing. And software licenses and support and maintenance are just part of them. Thank you.
Can you simplify, Madam Livia? We were there with you. We went down there in the basement. You showed us this is bus. Bus, you can touch Mr. Bus. There is the hardware, there's the software. There are people operating the system. They are there. And then I'm not sure whether the other one is Volindlela and so on and so on. Those legacy systems, they are there. And there's the other one from, I think it's the security services and so on and so on. But we didn't see IFMS. If you say money was spent on maintenance, maintaining what? Because there's even no laptop for IFMS there at SITA, unless there is another host somewhere. You say SITA is charging you for hosting. Hosting what? Because there's nothing that they're hosting. We were with the workers of SITA. They said, no, there's nothing like IFMS here. Here we're managing bars and all those other 3 or 4 systems that are legacy. We don't know what you are talking about. Simplify to us, when you say there's maintenance cost, there's the hosting cost, and you remember with those officials from Oracle, they gave us another explanation of what they are supposed to do, which they have not yet rolled out. When SITA charges you for hosting, what is it that they are hosting? Because so far, there's even no employee called and working for IFMS there at SITA. So what is SITA charging for? And moreover, SITA is a government agency, charges another government entity or a department for something that we have never seen. Again, we were there. We went there when we wanted to see for ourselves. If you say there was maintenance, there was hosting fee, hosting what and maintaining what? Please, let's be honest with the public. Remember when we were here, we are representing the public. We are not representing ourselves. Hence, honorable members want to know if money was spent 2.4 billion. Give us a breakdown. And we're there, honorable members. What the officials are saying here is not convincing. And we're not questioning you about the rationale of having IFMS. It's not our responsibility. We respect the notion or the doctrine of the separation of powers. It's not for us to take a decision that whether you need IFMS or not. Ours is about playing oversight and the executive accounting. So it's oversight and accountability. The rationale is your responsibility. But the question is, if you say you have spent money, you spend it on the license, what is it that Oracle and SITA were maintaining there at the Centurion? Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. We do have the detail which we can provide in writing that shows the breakdown of the cost incurred throughout the life cycle. Just to further indicate that not only did we incur cost on software licenses, but on other areas and aspect of the program, even though it is not yet implemented. In the project implementation life cycle, there is some preparatory work that needs to take place before we can then activate the solution for use. And a lot of the expenses to date, since we don't have the project implemented, have been incurred in that preparatory work as per the adopted implementation methodologies that are employed in the program. And those are standard project management implementation methodologies. So I will provide the detail in writing so that the members can go through what has been recorded in great detail for both IFMS 1 and for IFMS 2, but it will be clearly stated out what has been incurred.
Okay, let me go back to honorable members if they want to make follow-up questions or comments before we move to the next item. Honorable members, Bomabiletsa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think mine is just similar to all the questions that you have raised, because my question is, who is IFMS? Does IFMS have an infrastructure, whether something that you can touch besides a license? And then if they are piloting, I mean, obtaining a license is just buying a license. You know, if they are maintaining, what is it that they are maintaining? Because as honorable members, we want to see an infrastructure. And if they are going to start implementing, what is it that they're implementing? Because they do not even have an infrastructure. So will this thing ever happen? Because when you are saying piloting, it's just a wish list, you know. The pilot can end anytime or even after 20 years. Is there an infrastructure of IMF somewhere besides a license? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mabilesa. Honorable Shibamba.
No, that's I'm still not getting the response to the question of who is benefiting out of this IFMS, which is not there. Who is National Treasury paying the 2.4 million or billion to, not million? Who is paying? Who's benefiting out of it? Like, who is receiving the money? So that we can have a clarity of just what's happening, because we're just running around in circles. And you can check all the audit reports of National Treasury from possibly 5-10 years ago. There's always been a concern about this IFMS and how it's amounting to reckless expenditure. Who is benefiting out of it? Can we get that concrete response so that we know what we're dealing with? Thank you.
Are you done, Honorable Shibamba? Or you have a connectivity problem?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done, yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Honorable Shibamba. Mhlonishwa Sikhosa.
No, ngiyathokoza Sihlalo. Yeah, just a follow-up on the question that you have raised, which was also emanating from the question from Honorable Shibamba, on the breakdown of this 2.4 billion, which about 700 million, I think it was for IFMS 1, and I think around 1.6 billion for IFMS 2. And they are explaining that part of that amount was used for licenses, of which is the same explanation that they gave us when we were on the oversight visit. But my difficulty is, why is it so difficult not to be able to explain these other things that they've done with the other amount? Because they are saying it's for licensing and other things, and then they are prepared to give us something in writing to explain. But why is it so difficult? We appreciate that they can write, it's fine, but what is so difficult? I mean, when they say it's licenses, we did not say we demand to see the license. It's easy for us to understand when somebody talks about a license, we can understand. So why do they think it's so difficult for us to understand if they can explain to say it was for this and for that and for that and for that and for that? Why is it so difficult to explain all these other things, preparatory things that they had to do with the other amount other than the issue of licenses? Because they say they are prepared to write. No, that is fine. But the public is watching. The public is interested to know what was the other amount used for. Why is it so difficult for them to be able to mention these things? I mean, we will be able to understand in the same way we were able to understand where they said licenses. We did not demand to say, okay, let's see the license. No, we understood when immediately they said license, we said, okay, it's fine. But then what are other expenditure? Oh, can they be able to tell us now what are these other expenses for? Thanks.
Thanks. Let's do like this. I will go to DPSA and they tell us what is it that the money has been spent for. If they have spent the money on IFMS and go to SITA, SITA must tell us if they say there is hosting, what is it that they are hosting? Because we're there. There is bus, there are other systems. Why do you charge money for something that we haven't seen? And then go to National Treasury, justify why this money was spent on something that when we're there, physically, we could not be able to touch. Let's go to DPSA. DG Memakasi, can you explain to us in simple terms that This is how the process has gone through, and we justify why this money was spent. And then at some stage we got frustrated. That's the reason why the minister withdrew participating. And if now we have to go back, these are the conditions, so that we have got clear understanding as to what this IFMS is all about. When we go to constituencies, we tell them that it was worth it to spend 2.4 billion on IFMS and not spending that 2.4 billion on fixing a Kusile or another power station in Mpumalanga to make sure that we deal with load shedding. Over to you, DG. Then I will come to SITA, then National Treasury. You explain the questions that honorable members are asking in simple terms and justify the money that has been spent so far and moving forward. DG.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to confirm that ever since I have joined DPSA, I have not had an opportunity to sign for anything that has to do with IFMS from a spending perspective as the head of Department of DPSA. And I have not seen any such reports in detail. When I joined DPSA, I was informed there's investigations that are taking place on IFMS. I think SIU as well as Public Protector and other entities that were investigating. However, there is a colleague in the team who has been working with the IFMS project for longer, which is Ronelle Brandt, and she's also connected in the meeting. I don't know if she has any information that she can share of the team. With your permission, Chair, I would like if she can maybe share whatever information that she may have. Thank you.
Okay, please invite her to come
in. Good morning. Good morning, Chair and everybody. Yes, DG is quite right. DPSA was not directly responsible for any costs incurred with regards to IFMS. Just from the knowledge on the program, for IFMS 1, there were infrastructure procured for IFMS 1, and some of the modules were implemented. Like the e-leave system was piloted within the DPSA for IFMS 1. Thank you.
Ronan, can you simplify? You talk of, is it e-leave or what are you saying? What is it all about?
E-leave is just leave in an electronic format. So that was piloted with IFMS 1, which was the different model. It wasn't a single cot system. So it consisted of off-the-shelf software as well as in-house developed systems that was developed by SITA. So the IFMS was implemented on SAP. And it was piloted within the DPSA for IFMS 1 before the decision was changed for IFMS 2.
So e-leave, is it in operation now, or you have since dished it off because it was not user-friendly for you? What is the status?
Sorry, sir. Thanks. Yes, it was decommissioned. Because when the decision to change strategic direction was taken by Cabinet to move to a COT solution, there was no support anymore for the system. So therefore the system could not continue. The pilot could not continue and it couldn't be rolled out further.
Okay. Are we done from the side of the DPSA, DG?
Yes, Chair, apologies, we are done, Chairperson, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Let's come to SITA. SITA, we are told that you are charging National Treasury for hosting. What are you charging them for? Because we're there, we did not see IFMS in operation, and all the costs that are incurred there at SITA. Can you explain in simple terms, what are these services that you are offering for IFMS to justify that the money that has been spent on you? What is it all about?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. It's CD Mantangani, the Executive for Applications Development and Maintenance at SITA. Honorable Chair, we participated as SITA on formulating the architecture, providing architectural services on IFMS 2. And the other service that is relating to hosting is that there is infrastructure that is running in our Pietermaritzburg data center, where the product called the Envisioning instance, which is the prototype of IFMS 2, is hosted. Those are the costs on IFMS 2, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
We went to, what is that place, Centurion in Tshwane. We were never told of, maybe other honorable members can assist. I don't remember us being told of Pietermaritzburg. What's happening in Pietermaritzburg, which is not happening at the head office of SITA in Tshwane? Why take the system so far to Pietermaritzburg? Whereas we were told that SITA is rolling out the system in Centurion. We went there with the Treasury, with the Oracle was there. So now we have to go to Pietermaritzburg and see if it is there. So what you're talking about, can you explain in simple terms what's happening in Pietermaritzburg?
Chair, SITA has got data centers in Pietermaritzburg, and at the time a decision was made that that Oracle infrastructure will be established there in Pietermaritzburg in that data center. That's why it is running there.
So what is it you are using the data center in Pietermaritzburg for in regard to IFMS? Because you had DPSA, they said they have decommissioned e-leave. There's no department, as far as we know, which is using IFMS as we speak. What is the system that is in Pietermaritzburg being used for, and who's the consumer of that product?
Yes, Chair. DPSA is right on saying they consumed e-leave, and e-leave was part of IFMS 1, which had since been decommissioned. The one that is running in Pietermaritzburg, the infrastructure running in Pietermaritzburg, is hosting the prototype of the IFMS 2 product. And there is no one using it because it's a prototype. It's not a product that is ready for consumption, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Treasury, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to add on to IFMS 1, so there was the e-leave, the HR system at the DPSA that was piloted. There was also a supply chain system installed at National Treasury, which was used by National Treasury, and it was being piloted there. You would remember that in IFMS 1, the challenge that was faced was that the systems, the subsystem, and the system that was installed at National Treasury, which was an Oracle system, could not be integrated to form what we would call an integrated financial management system. And those were some of the challenges that IFMS 1 faced. And therefore, it was one of the reasons why it was motivated to transition into IFMS 2. And IFMS 2 would have been an integrated system with all the functionalities in that one system, and mostly with minimal customization, so that we then address the issues that were faced in IFMS 1 in terms of integrating two different technologies. So there was cost spent in IFMS 1 in the configuration, installation, and of the systems, as well as for use and support. Now, when we moved to IFMS 2 in 2016, we procured software licenses from Oracle to the value of 448 million. Then when we procured the licenses, there's what we call software licenses and support fees. And this speaks to the question of what were we supporting. Indeed, we do not have an IFMS system that is being used. But in technology projects, when you procure software, in order for your software to be up to date, in order for your software to be up to date to a point that when you are ready for implementation, you implement on the latest technology that has got the latest security patches, that has got the latest functionalities, and you minimize risk of installing a software that has got gaps or maybe not supported. You then maintain your software, and there's a fee associated to that. It is not unique to the IFMS. It's generally accepted practice within IT. When we procure software, traditionally it will come with support and maintenance. Although in our contract, it's optional, but we have incurred the cost on support and maintenance of the software that we procured through those licenses. That was a cost over a period since 2016 up to the last cost in the year 2020 or 2020, I stand to be corrected, but we did not incur that cost in the last financial year. Then we had professional services. So with professional services is that once we procured the software in 2016, we then entered into that phase that I've indicated. It was the architecture, planning, and envisioning phase. In the implementation of IT project, there's a life cycle. There's a methodology that we follow in terms of implementation. You procure your system, you will do some requirements analysis and gathering, and you will plan, and you will then put together your strategies in terms of rolling out and implementing your solution. And that is the work that the program had to embark on, and in line with those methodologies practiced in the IT world. So the professional services included what I refer to as policy gap analysis. So we procured that software. We then had to go through it in detail to look at the processes in detail to see if there are any gaps in us using the system at a lower level detail. So there's different levels. You would do requirements when you're procuring, you do requirements at certain levels, and then at project stage, then you go further into the lowest level. And that work entailed going through the entire system and the different modules. So different teams were working on this, including the service provider, to take us through what has been procured, identify gaps, match that against government processes and policies, and see if there are gaps. And that work took over a year. Yeah, I think it was over a year at that point. I can refer to my reports, but I do know that it was not less than 12 months. And that's where the cost of professional services was incurred. There was implementation planning, there was change management planning, implementation strategies, architectures, and we did that with the IFMS partners, DPSA, SITA, Treasury, and the service provider. That's where SITA has indicated that they did provide services. So in the program, what we do is before we go out and we procure services in industry, we reach out to SITA to see if government does not have those resources within SITA. And we do get, we have procured those services, and SITA has been to some aspect our service provider to the program over and above just being a partner. We then established a project management office. And in that project management office, there were project managers overseeing the different streams in that architecture planning project. And those incurred a cost as well of about 29 million. Then there are some fees related to audit, audit fees, which were incurred in the program. And we're talking since 2016 to date. The SITA hosting. The SITA hosting relates to the software that we procured. So when we procured that software, we installed it at SITA. Our first choice in hosting as a service provider for government. So we installed it at SITA. Why? We needed then to work on that software, to go through that software, to make sure that when we do our architecture planning, we do it comparing to what we have procured. So the SITA hosting fees were incurred there. It was not a free service. They had to set up an environment in order for us to perform the work. And that is what the cost of hosting, that's where it was incurred. And indeed, it was not a product that has been installed and ready for use. It is a practice in the IT and implementation of ICT projects where in some instances, you do then do your prototyping, go through your prototyping, and we're doing this work to ensure that we do the necessary quality assurance to be satisfied that when we get to implementation, which will be the next step, we already know the areas that need to be customized over and above the general solution or the vanilla solution that we've procured. We know the processes that we can just immediately activate. We know the processes that we need to align further to our policies. We know the extent of change management that is required in order for us to introduce the change to different streams or to different users, because there is a lot of difference based from what they are currently using and what they will be using. So all that work needed us to then interact with the solution that we procured to do the necessary technical assessment. And that involved SITA, Treasury, DPSA service providers, and there were reports produced to that effect so that the project can be ready for the next stage. So when we get into implementation, the work continues from that point onwards. We will take all those reports, all those outputs, and then the developers will then say, this is the areas that need further customization. This ones, they are fine. And that is the work that will take place in implementation. This is not unique to the IFMS. This is the best practice. This is the methodologies that implementation of ICT projects adopt, system development life cycle, as well as program management methodology, so that we follow a standard of implementation that is structured and it is practiced in the industry. So the cost was incurred in all those preparatory work. The challenge was that we could not then get a service provider to move into the next phase of implementation. But this is the work that was necessary, and it had to be done in line with how ICT projects are implemented. The next phase will be implementation, and then we're now implementing for use. At the moment, we are hosting for analysis and design and architectures, all that pre-work that has to be done according to the best practice and the strategies that this kind of projects employ in order to be implemented and quality assured, to make sure that our users are using the right systems and they are using what is aligned to policy, etc. That's the level of detail. I hope I've covered, Chair, and we can still again provide this in detail in writing. But those are the aspects of cost for IFMS 1 and for IFMS 2. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there follow-up questions before I invite the Deputy Minister to make remarks? Then we move towards adjourning the meeting. Honorable Mavileta.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My follow-up work is that now do we need to go to Peter Maritzburg? Because I still do not understand. Phase 1 failed, just an easy thing failed. And phase 2, they have failed all that money, damn billion, just for preparatory work. I'm still not convinced, but referring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mavileta. Even if we go to Peter Maritzburg, what I heard was that there is no one using that service. the one in Pietermaritzburg. Remember, they said they were using it to formulate an architecture, but the service has never been consumed by any department or government entity. So it is there in Pietermaritzburg, but as we speak, there's no one who's making use of the system. That's the frustrating part of it. Okay. Deputy Minister Tawatela, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think what is quite evident is that there is something that is problematic about the IFMS program, which means there should be some form of I don't know whether to say investigation. I know they've mentioned SIU and some of these establishments that are looking into IFMS. But I think at committee level, maybe also you might want to utilize legacy reports from the time of conception of IFMS because of the inconsistency in terms of the information that is provided when we come to committee meetings. And I'm saying this in the background of information that has already been relayed. I think it was around 2018-19 to the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. So if we get the legacy reports, there might also be a channel of really helping us understand what this whole program is all about. And from inception, what has been done, what has not been done. It can help us to understand exactly where the problem could have been. And I do agree with the DG of Public Service and Administration. There's no money that is actually being talked about here that has ever found its way to the Department of Public Service and Administration that has got a very small budget, regardless of the fact that we are a corporate arm of government, and whatever is done across government, always there must be a role that the department is playing in terms of norms and standards that we have to set in terms about each and every program that is actually set up across government, which is a discussion and debate for another day, but that needs today to be noted by the Finance Committee, that the budget of the department is an impossible budget to the extent that half the time people actually even end up using money from their pocket for doing certain things. I've had that experience personally. What is important, Chair, is for, and Honorable Swamp was saying, should we just abandon this whole thing? But before we abandon it, let's go deep into it, try to understand what is the problem. And then we can then, you can then, as a committee, make recommendations thereafter. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks very much, Deputy Minister, Dr. Pilani Machake. The DG present here, this thing has got issues here. Let me switch it off. And other officials from National Treasury, SITA, yes, DPSA. As members have actually suggested, Treasury, go and do as we request. Here is 2.4 billion that has been spent over the years on the IFMS. So what honorable members are requesting, because they have to account to the constituencies that they serve and to the public at large. Go and make a breakdown of this 2.4 billion. What was it spent for? And who were the service providers? That 779 going to Oracle or whosoever for license, and what is this license? Why is this license so expensive? And is there value for money to spend such amount of money. If we had spent it on student accommodation, it would have made a difference because education is our first priority. So please do that. Make a breakdown of the 2.4 or so much billion that has been spent, because the deputy minister, as she was also showing her frustration, was that these projects started so many years. Deputy Minister, you forgot that there was President Mutlante in between, President Zubeki and President Zuma. So this, the one up to now is the fourth president. So make a simple layout of expenditure and say so much was spent on this year, on this and this, and who was the service provider that provided that service, and then on and on and on. Then again, members say, yes, we don't have the authority for now to say we can stop you from proceeding. It's a cabinet decision. If you are going to spend money on an IFMS, whether 2 or 3 or whatever, show us, because it is us who are voting for the budget. Next week on the 19th, we are going for a mini plenary of finance. And amongst other things to be discussed will be the IFMS. And it is Parliament at the end that is going to pass the vote on finance. So show us and the public that if you are going to continue to roll out IFMS, this is the money that you are going to spend, and you are going to spend it on the following services, and make a breakdown of each and every service. And we are not saying that is going to complicate maybe your procurement for the future. If that is going to create problems, that you are disclosing information that you want to be used for advert on the supply chain, you also indicate. But we are not asking too much.
I can't hear anything, Honorable Chair. Is it me only?
Check
No, I
1,
can't
2,
hear
check 1.
anything.
I got kicked out by load shedding. Yeah, it's like Honorable Mabilete, you have taken over. If you have done so, you can continue.
No, I haven't taken over. I was just asking. I can't hear anything. You can go on. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I was kicked out by the load shedding. It started again now at 11. So I was saying that let's get a breakdown of what honorable members have requested with all those details. According to the committee schedule, on the 30th of this month, we are going to meet SIU Public Protector. We'll also get a report from Deloitte and Nexus. And if I'm not mistaken, Alan and Tebogo, is it going to be a joint meeting with the police and justice, if I'm not mistaken? But I think the 30th of May is the day that we are going to get all these reports from the agencies that were tasked to investigate IFMS. But before I continue, let me find out from the Secretariat if it's going to be a joint meeting. Alan Tebogo.
Yes, Chair. I'm still in the process of confirming with my colleagues from the other committees the availability for that meeting.
Okay. Be that as it may, let's proceed with the meeting of the 30th as finance, because you might find they are quite busy with their processing budget and other business that is before them. But on our side, the meeting of the 30th should proceed so that we go deep with understanding this issue. Treasury, SITA, DPSA, please, by the time we go to the meeting of the 30th, we should have received the breakdown that honorable members have requested for, and the project implementation plan moving forward. Yeah, that's it. Before I adjourn the meeting, are there announcements?
Hello, Honorable Chair, are you still out?
Can't you hear me, Bomabilat? Hello, hello.
We can hear you clearly, Chair.
Okay. Yeah,
No, we can hear you, Chair.
Oh, okay. It looks like it's Honorable Mabilet's awareness of the challenge of connectivity. Alan Tebogo, are there announcements?
No announcements from my side, Chair.
Okay, so make a follow-up with your colleagues from SITA, National Treasury, and DPSA to compile the information as resolved by the committee today. Thanks very much, colleagues, honorable members of the committee, Deputy Minister Pilan Machak, the DG, and all the officials from National Treasury, DPSA, SITA, and other agencies that were in attendance of this meeting. Until we meet again on the 30th of May, the meeting is adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Recording stopped.
If you hold up the bird, I could do Botox in the upper face for the line. Smile for me, give me a big smile for those lines. Lift the brows for those lines. Frown for again for those. So that's all Botox. Then for the volume loss that you have there, causing your nasal label over there, we can do the 5-point lift. We can lift it CK4.
Which is what I think is the one that really bothers me a lot, yeah. That one and the chin.
So I will write here your Botox. 20 plus just first go with 14. Let's go with 20. It's 5-4. Yeah. And that's for the lines here, and around the eyes. So that's
See,
the Botox.
yes. So what
one can
we're
leave
what
that-
we're doing here is what I
Yeah.
think needs to be done. And yeah.
I'm just giving you a breakdown of these.
Okay.
But we haven't, we're not gonna decide. I'm gonna, at the end of it, we're gonna decide what we're gonna do today.
Okay.
Then if we're doing fillers, I just don't want to culture stuff that we don't have. We can do cheap options.